They can't get the run game going. The offensive line's a problem, and the offense right now is in the bottom half of every statistical category. So we'll bring Geoff Mosher from InsideTheBirds.com into the conversation for today's Football at 4, and we'll ask him the question, when Philadelphia Eagles, should Eagles fans be worried about the Eagles' offense, and do you think the Eagles themselves are worried about this offense?
Do I think the Eagles are worried about I'm sure that they're concerned about it. I mean, it's not like it's been 1 or 2 weeks. I mean, it's been 6 weeks they haven't gotten the results that they've looked for. They obviously had some meetings they talked about during the bye week. I don't know if they're losing sleep at night, but coaches tend to be, process-oriented people, and their process so far is not delivering the results, so they have to go back and look at it. So I'm sure they're not resting easy.
Right, but you think the coaches are watching this offense and think that they have a problem?
Well, that's tough. I think that they know that some of the things they've tried to do, they probably can't do because of some of the injuries they've had on the offensive line or the ineffective of the offensive line. Some of their pass game, for whatever reason, it's either not working or there's openings. I know they ran, I think I heard you say this on the radio today, where people are saying they're predictable. They run 3 straight of the same routes that Brian Baldinger points out, but there's people open on those routes. So
well, and I compared it to, last year I went to the right? And I know there's been some talk about playing Tanner McKee, which is, laughable at this
ridiculous
point. But I was at that game. Tanner McKee ran the same play for a whole half. He didn't just run it on third down. He ran it the whole half. And if you can't stop it, why should I stop running it? And I think the coaches are saying, I'm calling a play that's got guys open.
Yeah, but you know what? The coaches have been doing that for 3 to 4 years now. We've seen that there are just certain throws Jalen Hurts isn't going to make at certain times, and then there's going to be a game or two where he just decides he's going to make that throw that day and whatever. So obviously I think if you're asking me what the coaches are probably thinking and not telling people is that they've got to fix the run game first, and they have to now work around some of the deficiencies they have on offense because of the offensive line's situation. Now, it's good that Landon Dickerson is back. We'll see if he can, make it through practice this week. I still don't expect him to be looking like the Landon Dickerson of last year, but that's certainly better than having Brett Toth at left guard. And we'll just see if they can maybe diversify the run game a little bit or do something different to it, maybe adding a blocking tight end or an extra offensive lineman, just something a little bit different to try to spring that run game.
Yeah, I mean, it was about this time last year. They were 2-2 at the time when they went to the bye, and then everybody kind of said, hey, I think we need to focus on running the ball more. Is that a solution for this offense?
I think the solution is running the ball better, which will lead to running the ball more. I think it's gotten away from them the last 2 games as they've been into either bad. So here's another thing. I'm not to interrupt myself, but their average starting field position sucks teeth. Let's be real. They suck in kickoff and punt return now. And I don't use language that strong unless the Eagles are really bad at something because I'm not trying to rip on players, but I don't have to rip on player because there's been 5 different guys who just suck right now at getting the ball in kickoff return or punt return, and they know it, and the team knows it. So I believe that's had a bigger impact than we've discussed on the offense because if you're, the Eagles used to be 3 plays away sometimes from just being in field goal territory, and one of those plays could be a Barkley 15-yard run, but they are so pinned deep in their own territory way too often that even if they have a bad run or just a 1 or a 2-yard play, that they're already what we call off schedule or behind the sticks. So if there's 2 areas that got to be fixed, it's got to be how they get better field position to start off with the ball, and then what they do on first down. I wrote this yesterday on Philly Voice. I talked to you about it on Monday. First down has to be better, and that really does start with running the ball better.
Well, we're talking with Geoff Mosher, of course, football at 4, phillyvoice.com. You can read more of his stuff over there as coverage of the Eagles as well. You guys did the Inside the Tape show with Greg Cosell, and he said he didn't think predictability on offense was the problem. So that's interesting because the players are saying, hey, we're too predictable, but what is the real problem?
Well, I do think that when players get frustrated, they're like anybody else. They say what comes to their mind, or that every coach I've ever talked to, and even a lot of players like quarterbacks, they don't like to tell you what went wrong immediately after a game because they want to watch the tape and figure it out first. It's hard to have answers in a game of football where there's 22 guys and all sorts of schemes. In basketball, you could say what went wrong. In baseball, you probably could. Basketball, we got out rebounded 30-10. It was obvious. Football is a whole lot different. You got to really watch the tape and see where the breakdowns are. And I'm not trying to say Lane Johnson is wrong. I'm sure he feels that in some regard, that if so many guys are at the line of scrimmage making tackles behind line of scrimmage, the Eagles aren't doing something well to disguise. But they have ran a predictable offense for years now. And you know what? Handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley on first down for inside zone is very predictable, but it was a heck of a play for the Eagles last year. I mean, it was a Super Bowl winning play, or at least getting them to the Super Bowl winning play. So you can put predictability and play calling in there. I'm not saying it's not an issue, but I far more think that execution, and the tape shows it, execution and injuries up front at certain spots are more an issue, because I think if those things were better, they'd be fine and they wouldn't be they'd be running the same plays anyway.
Most, it seems like once a year we kind of get down to, hey, this team, when asked to throw the ball, they have some problems. Why do we think that is?
Objection, Your Honor. You're leading the witness. You're trying to get me to say a bad thing about Jalen Hurts. I feel it, and I'm not going to do it. There's a lot of factors that go in. I will say this: his pass protection has been good. You saw it against the Giants. He had a lot of time to throw the ball. He made an uncharacteristic interception. It was his first one of the year. So to me, it's not about the turnover. I mean, it is about the turnovers. He does such a good job of protecting the ball, which has allowed them to play the quote-unquote conservative style of game that they've played, which is running the ball, quarterback runs, every once in a while, a deep shot, which for him is a high percentage pass usually. But this year, if you're going to ask me what's wrong with the passing game, I think the biggest thing is that he's really not hitting downfield the way he has in the past. And I don't know why or what's behind that. It might just be a little bit of a rut. But I don't expect all of a sudden that Jalen Hurts is going to start throwing the ball between the numbers into tight windows. It's not changing. But what can change is him kind of turning around how he throws the ball outside the numbers to his wideouts. And I would be surprised, Mike, if that didn't get better.
Well, we'll see, because obviously this is not a great defense to try to match that up, right? This is a tough defense that you're going to see a lot of different looks. If you were to handpick a defense to play this week, I'm sure it would be like, hey, give me Minnesota and Brian Flores. This is a great time to kind of get yourself right? I mean, this is going to be a very big challenge for this offense.
Well, very rarely do teams do the same thing twice, especially when they lose. But the last time the Eagles played Minnesota, I think was
2023.
Right. And they were giving the Eagles, if I remember correctly, the first couple of possessions, the Eagles were a little out of whack. And then as the game went on, the Eagles just decided to shift into ground control because they noticed that Flores was playing the lightest fronts. I mean, he was playing Eric Kendricks up on the line of scrimmage like a lineman. I mean, he was really just trying to tee off on the passer and blitz. And then the Eagles were like, fine, we're just going to go heavy. And I believe DeAndre Swift had close to like 200 yards that day. I mean, he had an amazing game. So it'll be very interesting to see this time around if Flores still comes after him because that's what he likes to do, or if he tries to be a little down the middle where you come after him, but you don't leave yourself so vulnerable and light up front. They obviously have different personnel now. They have really good they have better guys on the defensive front than they did 2 years ago. So it'll be a challenge.
We see some teams. Buffalo's having problems. Baltimore's having major problems. Teams that were good last year. Teams that, many people thought would be good again this year. How perplexing are some of the problems that Philadelphia is having? Like some of these other teams where you're like, hey, I couldn't imagine this team that went to the Super Bowl, brought back many of those pieces, and yet they're struggling. So do we have the feeling that this is just, hey, they had a bad week, was a short week on the road, I know they lost to a bad team, or do you get the feel that the big picture, that there are some problems here?
You know what? I'm glad you brought up the rest of the league because I feel like their problems are consistent with the other elite teams' problems. Like the Ravens brought back almost everybody from last year's team, and they added Jair Alexander. Now I know they've had a ton of injuries, but they were not playing good defense even before those injuries on defense settled in. They gave up all those points into the Bills after that turnover in the first game. The second game they gave up points. So it's surprising to me that a unit that British basically brought back and then added Jair Alexander was looking so bad. The Lions, I'm when they play outdoors, they're a little bit different than when they're at home. And so I guess I'm not totally surprised that they lost to the Chiefs, but they've had more turnover. They're still on two different coordinators. The Bills are surprising me. I mean, that's a team that offensively scores a lot of points and brought back, same quarterback, basically the same O-line, same two running backs, same receivers, maybe minus one or two. So I'm not quite sure. It just does feel like the league is a little bit more balanced. I think if you stop playing today, it's a Colts Bucks Super Bowl. Those are the two first teams, right? Two top seeds, right? So,
I'll tell you what, Moshe,
you're not going to see that in the Super Bowl.
I will tell you this though, in regards to Philadelphia, there's not a lot of margin of error here. You've got Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota, Chicago. Every team in the North has a winning record. Atlanta's 3-2; they've got a winning record. Tampa's 5-1. Three teams in the West are 2, plus Washington and Dallas on your heels over there. There is not a chance for you to kind of have some bumps in the road. You've got to start winning some football games here.
Yeah, I mean, in the NFC for sure. Now, in the division, the Commanders and the Cowboys were like, hold my beer.
And they play this week.
Yeah, right. So one of those teams that's going to lose, I mean, is going to have failed to make up any ground on the fact that the Eagles lost 2 straight, and then we'll see what happens against Minnesota. But, I mean, what a failure on the part of the Commanders who had that game in the bag. Then they have the awful fumble and give it up. And then the same thing, what did the Cowboys do? They lost also, right?
Yeah, they lost to Carolina.
Right? They lose to their own running back that they had last year and let go. So, yes, in the conference, it does look like the Bucks and the Lions.
And the Bucks play the Lions this Monday night.
That's a good point. So, but I mean, in the division, I think the Eagles got a gift.
Well, listen, yeah, if you win your game and somebody loses there, you got some buffer there. But right now, the method to get there last year, they end up getting home games because Detroit lost. You do have the tiebreaker against Tampa, but they're 5-1. In other words, if you lose a game against like Minnesota this week on the road, which is plausible, you're starting to look at a situation where home games are not going to be in your January future.
Yeah, a lot of football left to play. We'll see. I think
you're right about that. A lot of football left to play, but how much good football is this team showing us, or is there good football down the road still? Is that where we're going to see their good football?
Well, I think Sunday is a really big crossroads kind of. Even if no matter what happens, there's still going to be a lot of football left to play. But if they don't look right on Sunday, and that's 3 games in a row. They've not looked right really, but I mean, if they don't win, if they lose, that's certainly going to be problematic, and it's not going to.
Of course, the Eagles take on the Vikings this weekend. It looks like Carson Wentz most likely will be the guy for Minnesota Vikings, but their defense is very good, and that could give the Eagles some problems. This could be an ugly game. We'll see how it all unfolds. That is this Sunday at 1 right here on 97.3 ESPN. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, PhillyVoice.com. Today's football at 4. Thanks, Moshe.
You got it, Mike. Take care.
All right, there's Geoff Mosher, everybody, from the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, every day at 4 o'clock, we bring you football at 4 here on the Sports Bash.